Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Comp Queen with me. I'm very excited to be here. I'm going to give it a minute for everybody to start coming in and saying hi. Hello, Chris Bacon. I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of housekeeping items. So last week was our first episode, and I'm very excited to be here, very excited to be doing this. If you weren't here and you're watching last week, I want to just kind of let y'all know. I'm here to show you comps on multiple platforms and show you how we pull comps, to go over the basics and everything in between. Absolutely thrilled to be pulling comps for you if you have a property that you need comped here online. If you are on Facebook and you are not registered on StreamYard and you comment, you come up as Facebook user. So if you go ahead and click that register because you're not on YouTube, then I can see who you are. But hello, Facebook user. Glad you're here. Banana Man Randy, yeah. Good to see you guys. So just a couple of housekeeping items. Last week we had, our first episode. We had a little bit of, grace that I personally needed just from a production standpoint. We are currently getting, fiber internet lines installed, and so if it takes a little bit for something to pop up, you guys are just going to have a little bit of grace with me. I'm here to try to show you everything that I can and be a great resource for you, as well as put this out there because there's not a lot of great resources where you can do this, where you can get your properties comped live, as well as learn techniques, strategies, things from the way that I look at them when I comp. Hi, Yolanda. It's good to see you, my sister. You went and registered for me, and good afternoon. So I'm really excited to see you here. And we've got, just things that we're learning along the way. And so we're going to have some help getting moderation, getting a moderator when you do put comps in here. That boy Will, good to see you. And yeah, we can dig into some of these properties. Just to clarify a point that I made last week, I maybe should have gone into it a little bit more. I don't encourage people necessarily to utilize Zillow as their first option when it comes to comping. As you guys know, we utilize, or you may not know, we utilize PropStream, Propelio, and Batch Leads. We are nationwide, and so we're comping in all kinds of markets all over the country. We do a lot of comparison and contrast, and we do utilize all of those tools. So I'm here to show you how each of those tools are navigated, and the things that are important, like the set defaults, and how I kind of go broad and hone it in and get to my comps that way. What comping like an appraiser means to me. We did have a property last week where I could not find the actual property in and of itself, in which case on any platform. So I was having some difficulty getting in there. It's not that we never recommend utilizing Zillow, but we definitely do recommend having a tool. We know where these are sourced from, right? So it looks different in every state, and that's why I want to comp nationwide for you guys, not just in one specific market. And there are some disclosure things in different markets that make it harder for us to get access to really good comps. I was just pulling a property up yesterday, and I'm very cautious about the Zillow thing because a lot of people will take you to mean one thing when you mean another, right? And so that's what we're here to discuss. We're here to discuss these things and show them live. For example, I see a lot of people making the mistakes on Zillow that they're not, setting their defaults or setting their comps correctly. They're going off of Zestimates. And so I'm just really here to unpack that and dig into some of these comps with you guys and just show you how I look at it. So at some point, I'm sure there will be a property that, there's a lot of times where you can go on Zillow and you can see really good comps that make you feel confident, right? But sometimes those things aren't properly recorded on Zillow. It's not something that I recommend as your first source for comps by any stretch of the imagination. But it's not unusable by any stretch of the imagination either. So if you guys just stay tuned, we'll pack in, or we'll dig in and unpack some of that stuff and see what that comparison and contrast look like on specific markets. So again, I'm really excited for you guys to be here. I appreciate you for following, and I'm glad to dig into your stuff with you. So before we get into any comps, I got my boy Patrick in here, and hello, Mr. Yosef. It's good to see you on here. The Viking is smiling. He says hello as well. He's in producer mode. He's wearing his producer hat for me right now. No minimum. We'll skip. Okay. Well, Facebook user guy, you're not. No, thank you. And we've got a comp from Chris Bacon. I'm buying it for my family. First purchase, nervous about overpaying. All right. So we've got just a few of these that we can start digging into. We'll start out with, I'll go ahead and do this screen share, and we'll get started on batch here. 7800 Shelley Street in NOLA. Okay, so some of the principles that I'm going to talk about, I want to go slow enough for y'all to see what I see and understand what I'm pulling. I don't want to spend too much time focusing necessarily on what these defaults are and going over that like in great detail, but just understand that you have a set of defaults in every one of these systems, okay? And that I tweak that on each and every one of them, okay? So we'll use this as a good example to pull side by side in all three. And I'm just going to search those for you. All right. So you can see what pulls up from the set defaults. It's in the last 10 months, built within 10 years. A lot of times that 10 years is something that I really tweak if I'm not, that's the first thing I go to, going broader on, just to see, what is there. 10 years, it can really not be applicable in a lot of neighborhoods, especially in a place like New Orleans. I always pretty much ignore the bedrooms and bathrooms, and I keep this 20% plus and minus here. I don't need within 5 miles, and sometimes that default looks very different. I'm always setting mine to go within a mile because I don't really want to see what's out here. I don't like to cross major roads if I don't have to. I really am looking for what an appraiser is going to use. And what I mean by that is the closest properties that are comparable to your property, be it an as-is value or after you do a rehab, right? So I'm not really searching for a property 5 miles away. And this is where a lot of people screw up a lot of times. They're looking at a property over here that's worth a higher value than the 10 that are within half a mile. And they want to, of course, use that as a comp to evaluate the property. But what we've really got to do is dig into what is most like in kind, what is closest, and things like that. So I always kind of set those defaults to not distract me. I want to look into what is directly in my neighborhood first and foremost. The thing with Propelio here, you'll see the set default on this is within half a mile and 6 months, no other criteria. So this is another reason why you have to kind of navigate these systems differently. And then when you get into PropStream here and you get into what this looks like, you can see that these set defaults are square footage in the past year and half a mile. Okay. So what this tells you is that these are going to populate different things. Okay. Going back into this is automatically in order of distance. You can see that it does not default away from, what type of property. And what we're looking at here on this one is a duplex. Okay. So that means when you are comping in batch that you want to make sure that you are looking at other duplexes, right? So typically speaking, that's why people are going to have a harder time comping something like a duplex, right? You see an ARV and you're running numbers like a flip. And what you really want to be considering is what the rent rate is. Okay. So rent rate is very, very important when it comes to a multifamily or a rental property, right? So you can go to, it does not currently support rentals on that MLS there. And I might be incorrect about this still because I typically don't go straight here. To comp multifamily, but you have to pretty much right here determine which ones of these work on this list in Propelio that say multifamily, and then you've got to kind of click in, see what it says. Live on one side, rent the other. So you've got a duplex right here. I'm not even looking at the price. And I'm just selecting those that are duplexes there. In PropStream, what you would want to do is go into, again, this is very similar to the batch comps. And you want to kind of just look at your multifamily 2 to 4s. Okay. So within half a mile, within this square footage, these are your immediate 3 comps, right? And so what I'm going to do from there, no matter what system I'm on, is determine, do I need to go out further because I need more comps? And this is another reason why on batch, when I'm going to comp a duplex, I'm not as worried on a duplex, especially what year build it was. I'm going to be looking at street views in here in just a minute so that y'all can see, how I comp this. Now, I'm just going to be real with you. The first thing I'm going to do is this. One of these things is not like the other. If you're a Crucible Titan, aka one of our students, I guess is what you would call our Titans. You'll hear me say that a lot on this show, and they know it. If you're on Team Titanium, they already know. They hear me say that a lot. That's what I call this. One of these things is not like the other. And so I'm looking at this immediately and saying, I see stable data right here, right? 170, 155, 170, 185. So I'm going to go verify that. And especially in a state like Louisiana, I wouldn't be surprised right here if I have trouble getting out here. We got beautiful photos right here. You can kind of see the condition this is in this looks like a great rental property. So I feel really good about, does our property look like this? The very next thing I'm going to do, and mind you, this would all happen in a matter of like 25 seconds if I weren't like teaching you live online. So don't feel like it's going to take you 8 years to comp if you're doing this yourself. But I'm going to make sure I'm going to dig into that street view. And I just prefer, honestly, to pull it up on a separate tab in Google because I find the navigation moves faster. And I'm just looking around here. It looks like we have like a lot of duplexes right here. So this should be very stable information that we get. I'm checking to see what any covered parking situation is and just making sure that our comps don't have something major that we don't have, right? My first question right here is this the other front door? Kind of like, where's our other front door? Just things I noticed. Sometimes I'm looking for, like, is this the laundry room? Where's our other front door type of situation? I'm assuming that's not actually going to be a problem and it's just probably behind that truck or something. But I just want to make sure that there's nothing here. For example, parking is a really big one. If you're doing single family, we're looking for things like, does it have a pool? Just things that stick out. Is it on a busy road? Is there commercial property across the street? Things that would kind of make us say, well, this comp is different than this comp. Okay. So I look at a lot of things like this. Okay. And I want you guys to understand that these are principles of comping that I apply to everything that I'm looking for when I'm looking at these street views. Do we back up or are we facing major roads? Is this a 2-lane road? Is this in a residential inside the neighborhood? Is this that kind of lot? An airport being nearby, train tracks being nearby. You want to make sure that your comps are in the same situation that you're in. And those things do affect the value of a property. If one of them it applies to, but it doesn't apply to your subject property or vice versa. You understand what I'm saying? So what I want to do here is I want to determine, well, this airport right here might not be ideal, but these are all probably duplexes for a reason. And these same properties that we're using as comps are in the same noise situation created by this airport. Comps 4 and 5, you just want to go see that any of these that we're comping, right, don't have something that we don't. Okay. So a lot of times I'll just go to this Google Street View just to verify, hey, we have covered parking. Do they have covered parking? Because this sold for $170. Okay, we're in a very similar situation, and this probably May 2019. Well, this sold since then. Maybe that roof was fixed, but look, this looks like the same kind of street. So I'm not really concerned about that. The one thing I am going to look into is like comps 4 and 5. 5 obviously backs up to I-10 right here. So what that tells me is that's good for our property. You know what I'm saying? Because if it was affected by noise from the freeway traffic, then, that doesn't apply to ours. And it got a higher value than what a couple of these others do. Well, probably the units are, in and of themselves, maybe arranged upstairs, downstairs, maybe a little bit larger. This is a very different situation. Goodness me. Somebody call that property. And it doesn't look like they have any covered parking. So understand this. If you have a property and you're using that as a comp, you understand that it probably has, a larger footprint, a better layout, that sort of thing, or it seemingly does. And what I mean by seemingly does is it's 2 stories. So you want to keep that in mind because we have a 1-story that's very similar to this 170. I'm not saying completely discount it or disclude it, because what an appraiser does is, I kind of went over last week a little bit, but not in super detail. Okay. And then this one is fixed up really nicely. We've already kind of looked at this one. So let's look at this street view. I went over last week, not in a lot of detail, but just because you have a property that might be selling at 185, And sorry about my ADD here, but that street view didn't show me anything that throws me off. So just because you have a property here that sits at 185, right? And it's 2-story. That doesn't mean you can't use it as a comp. You want to be careful about choosing all properties that are significantly higher, that are significantly different than your property. Okay. In this scenario, we have a lot of supporting data. And when you think about what an appraiser does is they give additions and subtractions for all sorts of things: square footage, bedroom and bathroom count, pools, covered parking, things like that. So where you might still be able to utilize this 185 comp, even though it's a 2-story and ours isn't, it's the only one that's a 2-story, and ours and the other comps that we have are not a 2-story, but you can still put that on an appraisal. It still has a value that you can use to compare and contrast. And what an appraiser does is they add and subtract for the things that are better about one property versus your subject property, right? So I would still use that as a comp, and just for the numbers in and of themselves. So when you're going through the rest of this data, sorry, I don't know why it's not clicking off of that. When you're going through the rest of this data right here, you can look at the price per square foot and see if that's stable. Obviously, I did not select this one because something was very off about that. You can go in and you can very much look and see, well, why was this one off? Either was it an arm's length sale? Was this property a burnout? Was this property sold in a package deal? What happened here? But when I say one of these things is not like the other, we'll go and look at this. This is 21 photos. This is now listed for sale after rehab. They bought it for $30,000. Okay. Here's a little golden nugget for those of you who might be paying attention for more reasons than just comps. You have a perfect buyer right here, and you can look that information up. They bought this for 30 as an as-is comp. They remodeled it beautifully and are now listing it for 285. So this person obviously has interest in flipping a duplex. That being said, they did a really great job seemingly, and hopefully, I would assume they put at least $50,000 into this property, probably more with closing and holding cost. They should be able to make a decent profit on this. I don't know that I feel like it'll sell for $285. And that's one of the things that I'm like, okay, well, you have to go in, and now when it comes to a duplex, verify the rental rates that you can expect. Okay. So I'm assuming each side of this property is roughly 1,232 square feet, and it is a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath potentially. I mean, well, that's 3 bathrooms. Sorry. How can I do this math but not that one? One is maybe has an extra half bath. So it's a 3-2 on each side, roughly 1,200 something square feet. So one of the things I actually do utilize Zillow for, and y'all are going to laugh at me, is I love to go when you are in PropStream, Propelio, and Batch, you should be able to get rental comps. As we already showed on Propelio, it is not supported by the MLS, and that's where they're pulling their rental comps at. On Batch, you get an estimated rent right here. On PropStream, you get an estimated rent right here. And one of the reasons that I love to go to Zillow is because a lot of landlords post their properties for rent on Zillow. So I kind of will show you guys how I most commonly teach our students and how I typically will utilize Zillow. And that is for rental comps, because you are getting live in action rental comps to verify these numbers that are pulled into your comping tools. And I find the live rental comps from actual landlords to be more accurate on a platform that they're posting it for rent, right? And the reason for that is y'all should probably understand that there's a lot of rental properties that get rented out without ever touching the MLS. And so that's like a big key factor in this for me. That's why I like these live rental comps pulled off of a platform that literally the landlords themselves are using to tell us what the market rent rate is, what the going rate is for market rent right there. So I put this in here, I hit for rent, and I searched my property, right? I'll have to give it a minute to think as you zoom out. Okay, so our subject property is on one of these right here, right here, Shelley Street. So this is right around the corner. This is a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom that's renting for $13.50 a month. Now, what we've got to determine, is this an actual house or is this a duplex as well? And we're looking at the condition right there. Newly renovated. Turnkey and ready to move in. And what I'm going to do here is, because we have parking off street. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to literally go to the Google Street View of this. It's going to answer my questions pretty quickly. Because when I see this, if this is a duplex instead of just a single family by itself, and it is. So that tells me this rent rate that I'm getting is very low for both sides of that duplex, right? So if you can get your actionable rent rate by using multiple comps, I'm thinking it'll probably rent out easily with a rehab, easily at least $1,100 a side, right? I mean, we have 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, assuming all of that is true. You've got reasonable justification as to why that flipper bought that property at $30,000 that we saw, and it now has it listed at that rent rate, because you're actually going to be able to get a lot more in rent, and rentals are kind of comped as far as like what you want to be all in as a landlord by the rent rate, if that makes sense. So being able to comp that, I would run numbers on it for the purchase and flip strategy, as well as the exit strategy of getting it tenanted out. So but that tells me what my comps are right there. I would easily put this as an appraised value of minimum 175, assuming they're going to go ahead and do any rehab that's needed, and assuming that the bedrooms and bathrooms are correct, and that rent rate is correct. So that's kind of how I would sit there and comp that duplex. All right, let me talk to my people and get some more comps going. I hope that answered your question.
I have them all in the private chat for you.
You're amazing. What's up, Zane? Good to see you. Jacob Tucker, good to see you this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. The one that sold for $30K was a gutted house. Makes perfect sense. Obviously, you can have a higher offer on us, but one of the things that I'm telling people all of the time, and is, when it comes to rental properties, you need to be asking your sellers, is it tenant occupied? What are they paying? How long have they been there? Are they current on their rent? Or is it month to month? Or is it lease? You always want to get that rent, market rent value if it's a value add situation. So I don't know that I'd go with that $13.50. I'd probably spend a little bit more time looking at what other things are renting out there. So you're kind of, when you were looking at a duplex or triplex or quad or multifamily, you want to look at all of those factors when you're running your numbers on the property. So that's how I just pull comps on those specific things, not necessarily run numbers on it, because there's other factors involved there. What is the current condition? Things like that. Right. Jordan, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. All right, so we're going to move on to the next property, which is in Ruskin, Florida. And I love, y'all, that I can just show you what different things look like in different markets, because I feel like that is going to lead you to being more knowledgeable about your comp search. So even if you're not in these markets, I think this is very valuable. We started out just in DFW and got very used to how comps are pulled in DFW. We weren't always nationwide. And I don't want you guys to get confused or think you are doing something wrong if you're not used to seeing some of the things that we are and you're only in like a couple of markets. So, but it's still very valuable for you to be able to look, because if you're in any type of larger city that has, a metroplex and suburbs around it, they all look kind of different, right? So they're pretty widely applied principles. Oh man, we got one in Ruskin, Florida, that the defaults, mind you, the set defaults aren't giving me anything right here, which honestly I don't hate that situation. This is going to show you why we have multiple places that we pull comps. Okay. So I'm just doing a side-by-side quick comparison of what each tool looks like. Another thing that I love about these tools is it just gives you so much information regarding things like the mortgage balance, the last sale, what that sale amount was, when it was, things like that. And yeah, some of this can be accurately found on things. Whoever has this one in Ruskin, Florida, I'm just going to be honest with you. You don't need to do a whole lot of comp in here. This has been on the market. So you have a realtor's opinion already as far as what this property can sell for. So please don't be offended if I don't spend as much time on your comp. But we've got, obviously, the current condition is very easy to see. You do have automatic estimated values. Let's see what the comps say. Those probably aren't super accurate. So I would go out to that 1 mile instead of that half mile. And yeah, I'm just seeing right here, these are different types of properties. So what you can do to let yourself know is just get back to that single family only. One of these things is not like the other. If this is, I'm just assuming that this agent has this priced correctly, just from the comps that I see here. They've vetted it, they've analyzed it, it's listed on the MLS. I'm not really seeing this as being 100% an actionable deal. So what I would typically do and what I'm going to do is move on from that one just because, and I don't know whose deal that was, but I'm going to move on to one that is more actionable. I feel like that is currently listed at probably what the house is valued at. And there's not probably a whole lot of room for an investor to add value. Probably going to sell to an owner occupant because that's probably the best situation, and that's why it's listed. And I didn't actually look up the rent rate. I guess I could do that. That would be the other thing I might look at. Yeah. I mean, it's not a good rent value that would make that investor happy. They're going to need to find an owner occupant to get that price. It's listed at market value. So moving on to this one here in Little Rock, Arkansas. All right. Hi, Robin. It's so good to see you. You're buying it as your first purchase. Chris, is that the one that we just pulled up in? So that's, in my opinion, listed at market value. That looks like a good value for that house according to the immediate comps. All right. Do you have a realtor? Would be my question for you. Without going on a tangent or a rant that isn't 100% applicable to this Little Rock comp, I just want to say I am a licensed realtor here in the state of Texas, and I think there's a lot of value to realtors that people don't necessarily give credit for, or that some of the more not so desirable realtors that are out there kind of try to spoil the barrel of apples. But realtors are, a really good realtor is invaluable, and I will just say that. All right, cool. Yeah. Hopefully your realtor is amazing, and they are helping you to facilitate that transaction. Okay, so what I see on this property here is we have a few photos. It looks very distressed. Again, forgive me, I don't know whose property this is, so I'm not going to speak directly to you, but we are at 3416 West 14th Street in Little Rock, Arkansas. Okay, so we have our set defaults here. We see immediately that this was sold in 2017 for $4,500. I usually will go back and see exactly what, if there's been any work done to it. Those are things that I would ask the seller if it's been sold for that low of a price, depending on what they're asking for it, things like that. Cute little property on a hill, cute little neighborhood. Nothing stands out to me right there. Again, oops. I like to see this street view. I like to verify I'm not backing up to any train tracks, or sometimes it's not negative. Sometimes you might be in walking distance between a babbling brook, a cool body of water, things like that. Those are just things you want to look out for. Golf courses are another thing to be cognizant of when you're pulling comps. If you're a golf course lot versus a not golf course lot, a waterfront lot versus a lot that doesn't have water access. So let's see what we've got here. We've got a single family. So I'm going to go ahead and do my thing there on my criteria. I don't want to be comping with commercial and residential. I'm going to take out some of these lower price. This probably means that this was a foreclosure. Yep. Foreclosure, cash sale may not apply. Definitely can still look into it. But right now, I'm just looking for something that gives me, and you'll run into this a lot in markets that are in these kind of price points in like a Little Rock, so on and so forth. So we've got a distressed property sitting at 2,000 square feet. I need to verify how many bedrooms this has to really properly pull comps, but I'm just going to try to go without it. Um, one of the things a lot of times I end up looking at rent rates in markets like this with prices like this because you don't really have enough room to go ahead and completely fully remodel a 2,000 square foot property that's in this kind of shape without it being a rental, and producing income. And the reason that I say that is because if you spend $60,000 to remodel this property and you're trying to sell it for $92,000 after your closing and holding costs, you're not going to make money on this as a flip, right? Now, if we find that there's more room or more substantial evidence nearby that gives us better comps, by all means, I'll go back to thinking of it like it's a potential flip. But right now, this is kind of precarious because we have a larger, very distressed looking, if these are recent, property that we're talking probably like a roof, complete new siding job, windows look like they're in terrible shape, things like that. This is obviously going to be a safety issue. So, and that's not even digging into just cosmetic rehabs, that's all assuming additionally that you've got, what is hiding behind this fence? Is that AC equipment? Was this turned into a duplex? Something I'm not 100% sure. So without those kinds of details, I just kind of try to do the best that I can on here and tell you what I'm thinking as far as the comps go. As we let Little Rock pull up here on Propelio, I've got a little bit. And now, so one of the things I'm really paying attention to when I'm on Propelio initially is don't get yourself too excited. One of the things that RJ happens to love about Propelio is that it doesn't set recommended defaults. And the reason that he likes this, and I even like it too because I'm used to it, is that you kind of have you see what your market's capped out at for the past 6 months. So you can look at the highest price sold property within your half mile, like right here. I really wouldn't go over here. Obviously, this is crossing a couple of major roads, so probably not going to be considered a comp at the end of the day. It's also 500 or 5,880 square feet, so that's not going to be really considered a comp. That's huge. It's probably multifamily. So what we're going to do here then is we're going to say, okay, well, I need a square foot max sitting here. I usually go 300 to 500 over and under, and I always try to go in the past year, because now I'm going to take another snapshot in my mind of data that automatically gives me information about the market that I'm dealing with. Okay. So we've got $100,000 sale at 1968 square feet right around the corner. I don't feel like our property has to look exactly like their property. We've got a good solid, I mean, these are materials that this has been remodeled. This is clean. They're not expensive materials. It tells you, around what kind of rehab you can do to get a property that's going to sell at this price, which is sold for $100,000. I would call that an easy, if the property is still in the same condition as it was in those photos. I mean, that's an easy $45,000 remodel. So that kind of tells you what that flip would look like. Again, if you're going to the current street view, sometimes it can give you a little bit of information here about the last time. But see, this is 2014, so not doing you any favors. We can try to look and see on various different platforms where those photos may have come from, but it's probably from the last listing. Redfin and realtor.com a lot of times will have more photos. So sometimes that might be from a rental listing, and that's why, again, you're going back to these platforms that people, landlords, a lot of times will list their rental properties at. This is a duplex, so not going to count that. Assuming that this isn't a duplex. I'm not seeing you pop up in the comments saying it is. So I'm thinking like there's a very clear evidence here that tells me that this is $100,000. We've got one that's active for 134, but that's kind of, I'm looking on these solds. I'm seeing sufficient evidence. Now this is pending, but you gotta, when you start to see something like that, this is why I like going on those street views, you guys. This is why that's really important to me. And this is also, you know, if you want to eliminate stuff like that, sure, you can put in the year built. But that also tells me somebody will spend $123,000 on a 2019 build. So what that does for me is says there's no way that I should be expecting my house to sell for $123,000 after I flip it. Does that make sense? I mean, maybe because we do have that much more square foot, but that was only almost 1,400 square feet. We got 600 more square feet, but this is top of the market. You see what I'm saying? So what you can do here is go ahead and then you can put in that 1,800 square foot minimum. You can go back to that 300 over and under square footage. It's funny how the comps that I kind of selected, 2 of them are here, 1 of them is not. But we still have this property here that sold for, it's a duplex though. So this is a good example of why setting your criteria is super important. And why going broad is super important when you're pulling your comps. So if you're pulling comps from here, you're getting 100. If you're pulling your comps from here, what number was it? Number 2. 132, 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom, 1,653 square feet. What is making that one so much better than the others? You see what I'm saying? We are a mile out over there. And when you click on these, you can rearrange them by price as well. If you want to look at it in the list view, that's bananas. You don't want to go over there. You can utilize this the same way on batch, where it's like, okay, I just actually want these properties that aren't super far away. To narrow down your comps because you think that these are the most applicable comps. So again, I'm getting another property over here. And then I'm going to go back in. I'm going to dig into these. Nicely remodeled, smaller square footage. So this is good supporting evidence for us. It's that older home, 1938 build. You're seeing what remodeled properties will go for in here, right? This might be more everyday, not flipped. Yeah, not shocking. We've got carpet from who had this carpet in their house, in their grandma's house. I love it so much. Oh, I mean, I miss those days. But they've done some updates and they've done some upkeep to it. This is definitely livable. Somebody can buy some new carpet and come in here and slowly, make it their own after they do. Wow. Oh, this reminds me of someone's grandma's house. We've got, probably what's an addition on here. Oh my Lord. So yeah, I mean, this makes sense. It's very well taken care of house, but very outdated. So it kind of makes sense. Like you would look at that as kind of a mid or as is properties, why that's sold lower. So that's not necessarily a comp, but it gives you information. It gives you data as far as now ours is like a full flip. Like, so you got to be much lower than that. So as far as like what your comps are, I'm definitely putting this at an easy 120 for full flip. Again, I know I said if my house was 1,400 square feet, I'm not going to get 120 out of this. So this is another really good example, you guys, of why your defaults are so important. You've got to make sure you're not just looking at the properties that were built within 10 years. You're not just looking at the properties that are within that 20%. I like to go a full mile, a full year, but you've got to make sure to look. Hey, I don't need to look at a townhouse to comp this single family, things like that. And then just reset your filters. And this is also another reason why you don't want to just look at the estimated values because they're populated without you choosing your comps. Okay. So just like I showed you in the other platform, you can sort this by distance. You can sort it by everything in here. But this, I don't want to go and include all of these properties in my estimated value. That's where people tend to run into problems is they're not picking their 6 to 10 best comps or 3 to 6 best comps, just depending on how many things that you have to select from. So when you zoom in, you can again use, I always do that. Sorry. It takes a minute to get out of that full screen view, but you want to get in there and you want to select your comps that are on your side of the freeway or your side of the train tracks or your side of whatever the dividing line is. So I did show this last week, but I always end up accidentally going into full screen mode. Oh, geez. Let's try that again. Did this really just do this on me again? Lord Jesus. These are these technical difficulties about being live that I ask you to have so much grace with me for. I am actually used to doing this at a much faster pace. So that's what that looks like when you start to filter them out. So you've got, again, when you put it in the same set criteria, you're not seeing that much difference. And then once this would populate down here, it would pretty much look this exact same way as this. You would have your properties that you select from, and then we compare and contrast it. We have a really solid evidence that 100 is a very safe number on this. 120, even up to 132, just depending on, with you having to go in that full flip, I would run my numbers on 120 on a full flip for that. All right, 17 people watching, and where are my likes at? I don't know how many likes I have right now. But I prefer to have lots of likes. I'm out here just trying to comp away and be a good resource for you guys. So you could smash that like button for me. And we'll dig into the next one. All right, we've got one in Savannah, Georgia. And also, you guys, feel free to ask your questions. I am going to do a much better job about moving back and forth between my comments and my comping while I'm teaching. The more I get used to this, I'm very used to doing this with people who are Crucible Titans, or they're my team, so they have a lot of grace for my little quirks and idiosyncrasies. And so hopefully you guys will learn to love those things too, because they're definitely going to be in full force the first few episodes as I get used to going back and forth to comments. I am not a professional at being on YouTube. That definitely RJ. Thank you, Angel, for liking. for liking. I'll be a professional in no time. I am a quick study, but my biggest interest in all of this is for you guys to learn how to comp. So I am very, very much going to make that my priority. Not if I say too many times. I'm sure you guys can give me a little bit of grace on there if I need filler words, especially while we're waiting for, you know what? I have noticed Mr. Bates, Mr. Viking Wizard in my corner being my producer today. One of the things I have noticed is even though we didn't get the fiber installed before this episode 2 like I wanted, this is moving faster than it was last week. So I'm welcome. Did you fix it for me and I didn't even know? Or are you just claiming it? You're amazing. See, guys, this is the thing. I have the best team. I have the best producer. Y'all don't even know how lucky I've got it so that I can be out here doing this for you. But RJ is definitely a professional. I will never forget, as a side note, as I'm pulling this up, the first time my partner, RJ Bates the third, went on and did his first podcast on the Titanium Vault. I expected him. I was like, okay, I'm already ready to be in his corner, right? I'm already ready to sit there and be like, you did a constructive criticism and cheer him on and be like, hey, we should do this different, or hey, we should do that different, or you said or a lot, blah, blah, blah. Were you feeling like you needed a filler, things like that? This dude just goes out there and he kills it. I had nothing to say. I'm like, he's so naturally good at this stuff, and I'm so grateful, as my side note nation on this episode, to be able to have been sitting here getting to witness that this whole time. I probably would have taken a million years to get this set up right. You guys would still be waiting for comps in 2022 still. If it weren't for him in the background, oh Lord help us. So thank you to my amazing partner and my amazing team. I got so many amazing people on here. I won't go on and on about it, but we will dig into this comp in Savannah, Georgia. All right. So again, this is just why, noting the filters, okay? So I'm just going in here, looking at the last mile. Square footage is probably pretty accurate. I like to go even broader when I start to see numbers all over the place like this before I even start digging in. I'm going to keep this at a mile. Last 12 months, sold, active, pending. Another thing you can change, but I don't because I like that information. He's busy practicing to take a closer crown. That's right. He's getting that belt and bringing it home. The only reason RJ will win Closers Olympics is because he doesn't have to compete against Robert Blaine. Robert Blaine, for those of you who don't know, is my biggest fan. For those of you that do know, you know why I'm laughing hysterically. I do this laugh and I have no shame about it, but this is big mouth laugh where I'm like, ha. I used to be terrified of letting people see that on camera. Get my likes up. Yes. Yes, thank you, Horacio. I hope I said that, Horacio. I always try to say people's name correctly because people mispronounce mine often. Providing value here for free. That's the least we can do is get my likes up. Okay. I love it. Thank you for your support, all of you. Seriously, we might be like razzing on you if you forgot to hit the like button, but that's only because RJ does it to me all the time. We just razz people like you haven't hit the like button yet. All right, so the first ones I'm going to look into, getting back to comping, is I'm going to look right into these right here. For some reason, sometimes, and I apologize to you guys, even though this is something I can control, sometimes when we're doing batch live streaming, and this is one of those things I really want to get my internet up better for, it takes forever to populate the list down here of the properties you've selected. So that's why sometimes I don't utilize this tool. And it's only an issue for me when we are on a live stream. For whatever reason, or if we're casting to a TV in our office, sometimes it will just do that and take quite a while. Versus this version right here. So I'm just going to sort by distance. Okay. So it's just how you kind of get around some of those things that I'm trying to show you, but also show you how to navigate these tools. So that's just one of those things that I'll probably explain every now and then on these episodes. So you're kind of seeing what I was seeing right there, in that we've got numbers all over the place. I can 100% see why anybody in their right mind would be like, I can sell this for $545. What? So you've really got to dig into these comps here. Going back to it, I'm looking at that straight view very quickly. We've got 1,000 square feet. Now our presets tell us that there's a property that's sold for $545. Lordy mercy. If that's accurate and it's not a package deal or a multifamily, something like that, I'm going to say one of these things is not like the other. And I am going to see if it is pulling as a comp on an okay. And there it is, guys. There it is. It is pulling on multiple platforms, but it is, for some reason, the way they have it listed or the way they have it disclosed, maybe it used to be a single family and it was turned into a multifamily. But once you start digging into the comps themselves, you're understanding that that's a multifamily dwelling. Okay. And you're understanding it's not a comp right out of the gates. perhaps they didn't rezone it when this was last recorded, things like that. So let's see what happens when you take away multifamily on PropStream. It's still showing. It still pops up right there as a single family. That is bananas and pajamas. Okay, so I'll explain to y'all like what kind of happened more than likely in that scenario and why you actually have to dig into your comps and try to get the consistent data that you are going to see an appraiser use. And it's not as easy as some things. You just log in and you get an estimated value even off of your comp tools. Okay, you don't want to just go off of these estimated values that you're seeing on here. No matter what that tool is, you have to understand that they're pulling just a formula. They're taking data and those presets that they've predetermined and they're pumping it out. You still got to go look and make sure that the data is consistent, and you still got to go apply whatever your strategy is to that. So for example, Mr. Bacon had a house that he's saying he wanted comped. And I'm like, this is listed on the MLS. I'm probably not going to dig into it too much beyond I see consistent data here that says that this is listed in the right price point. You know, you're going to have an inspection, but this is listed. This is probably their best exit strategy, so on and so forth. Well, then it comes out that he's looking at that as a purchase for, for himself, right? So depending on if it's, his first home or if it's a home that he's looking to rent out, that's going to matter as far as what a good purchase price is, right? But as far as the market data says, that's a good list price for that house, right? And that's all we're looking at here when we're comping, right? Is what does the market data tell us? If our house is distressed and we put X amount of dollars into it, what would it sell for as a flipped house? What would it sell for as is? You're not looking, and you're looking to run numbers from there, right? So when you see something like, well, this is multifamily and it's still popping up, even though I changed my criteria, it's probably because an agent, however they listed it on this board in the MLS, they probably listed it in more than one way to get more than one pool of buyers' eyes on it. So it has something to do with that being recorded that way or being listed that way. So it doesn't necessarily mean if you just have one of these tools that they did something wrong. They're pulling the information from different sources. So that just means that you don't include it as a comp, and it's super important that you actually dig into what your comps are. You don't ever just go off of these estimated values, right? You don't sit there and be like, but I have a comp for 545, because then you're going to look silly. You don't have a comp for 545. That's never going to be used on an appraisal for this property. So I would dig into these as is comps, as well as anything that I'm seeing. We have some kind of something going on here that we've got to discover. What is the big difference maker? Okay. Is it this street? Are these comps not the same as these comps? Number 14, you would probably assume, since it looks like it's a McDonald's, aka it's right close to a McDonald's. Yeah, that's going to stick out to me if it's that close to some commercial stuff where I'm like, okay, is the data consistent, So we're sorting we're within half of a mile here, okay? So property number 1 is a multifamily. We're out. Property number 2, is it going to look like ours? Now I could go in there and I could just select the properties with this little drawing tool. Batch has one of those too. I could just go select these properties that are on this side of the street and just completely get rid of these. But we are within half of a mile. I want to look at as is comps. I'm going to look at these first, certainly, but I'm going to see, well, what does number 3 sell for? What does number 4 sell for? The first thing I notice is that those are on the other side of the street. That's probably a good thing for me, but where's property number 6? Is that on our side of the street? And maybe that, yes, it is. Maybe that those are all as is comps. I don't know if in this neighborhood, this street is a dividing line yet. Hey, Joey. Adam, you're watching while at work. I appreciate the dedication. I love it. I'm really grateful to be able to have you guys get value out of this. It's my aim. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. So again, I'm going back to this Google Maps. I'm going to my street view. I'm looking around. Oh, I love tree-filled streets. Don't you guys? I don't see anything that is very concerning for me or varying. When you look at this street view, remember when I said the one looked like it was at McDonald's? We're going to start looking at these. And the reason why I want you guys to understand why I look at this stuff is I do pull comps nationwide sometimes. And if Yolanda is still watching, she's going to be one of the people that very much verifies that I cannot express to you that in certain markets, the commercial properties that you might be right next to can make such a huge difference on the value of your subject property. And that they actually can, add value on the market, right? So Yolanda is in Baltimore, and we're talking about when you're comping some of these downtown properties, row houses, they're by posh little commercial shops right there. That makes a huge difference than if you're 8 blocks away. It might not look like much on the map, but it's actually really important for you to know your surroundings when you're comping a property. So I just want to explain in as much detail as I can why I really look at these things. And please understand when I say this, I am teaching here. So I look at these things at like flash lightning speed when I'm actually doing it without being live, when I'm actually doing it. So when you get used to looking for these things, they happen like this quick. You're just looking for things that stand out to you. So going back, I'm cognizant in my brain. Here's these major roads. Here's these commercial areas. I'm getting back to my comps. It obviously looks really different, and you can do a satellite view or map view on here. I'm guessing that means that these are all comps, okay? So what that tells me is I need to figure out what the difference is between a $260,000 property and a $170,000 property. What is the difference between the $25,000 property and the $80,000 property? So you kind of have what I like to call as-is comps that are very clear, and you have after repair comps that are very clear. Understand this. If you are an investor, if you are a wholesaler, even if you are an agent and you are looking at these comps and you're like, they're all over the map, understand that they're really not. You have properties that somebody was willing to pay this price for. You find the similar things about those properties and you can kind of categorize them. And look at what an appraisal is going to say. There's a difference between an as-is appraisal and an after repair value, or an after repair appraisal. So you can very clearly see there's a lower set of comps and then a higher set of comps. It's not necessarily because what we're dealing with here is different neighborhoods or different types of properties. You are likely dealing with an area that's being regentrified here. So you want to start looking and digging into those properties themselves. You want to sit there and say, if I put 60,000 or 40,000, or if I go and remodel this, what will it sell for on the market? So this is a potential comp. This was a photo of it in 2019, so maybe not applicable. I love seeing that. Cute little tree line neighborhood. You've probably got some that were like duplexes. This is nothing that makes me feel like we are out of our depth. This comp is not that dissimilar. It's very close by. Sold for $260 as a 31988. Now, when we looked at that street view, I believe that this was probably in 2019 before this was clearly flipped and sold. And I'm wondering, one of the things, I don't know yet for sure, but we're going to dig into it, comping in places that have basements. We covered attic space a little bit last week. I kind of told you my rule of thumb for quickly comping the attic space. And I didn't really go into basements. They did a great job on this flip here. A really great job. I'm not going to keep clicking on it like crazy. I'm just really looking to see if there's any photos of a basement here. And sometimes I have to do that by clicking on the details. Adam, you love my videos. Thank you. It makes me happy. I've got people that I'm serving out here. Okay, so MLS Details is the tab I like to go to get some more information, because 988 square feet at this price point is a little bananas to me. So I want to make sure that, I'm getting all the info, right? So property description is Moments to Starland in Habersham Village. Not surprising. Fully renovated 3-1 home in Ardsley Park area. Charming front porch, blah, blah, blah. Shiplap, blah, blah, blah. Off the living room, blah, blah, blah. A third bedroom that can be used as a flex or office. Well, that's listed, so it must have a closet. The dining room leads the kitchen where blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. We know it's really well remodeled. New roof, new systems, all that fancy stuff. 4 off the street parking spaces, huge backyard. All right, so this doesn't tell me anything about a basement or anything that leads me to believe. We do have a garage. That's really the big thing that stands out to me here, guys. So can we turn our property into this? Yeah, I think we can. There's not a whole lot of reason why we can't turn this into that. We need to go to the property details here and see what we're dealing with. I think the big difference is we're not going to have a garage. From what I'm seeing, and that's something we need to be cognizant of, either needing to add or significantly consider in what we're comping this at. So then the next thing that I want to do is go in and figure out why this one sold. Okay, this is a flip. Why did this one sell for $170 where that sold as $260? And that's what we've got to figure out. We don't want to just split the difference, in other words, which a lot of people do that kind of stuff. Oh, what is on those counters? Oh, I'm not sure. Are those wood counters? I don't know. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and it's larger, and it sold for $170. Now, I could sit here and try to pick this apart and say, well, the carpet or the bathrooms are smaller, the kitchen is smaller, but I'm not really going to go and dig back into that necessarily. We got to look first and foremost at the location. We got to look at the street view. These are principles that I would apply. So we're going to look at, is it number 5 and number 2? Number 5 is on our side of the street. Okay. This is like 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 blocks away. Are these little cluster of properties right here close to, like, is this a busy street? Is this mobile station a problem? Is that the big difference? Because that becomes more of a price per square foot if that's what I'm finding. Is there a Church's Chicken parking lot backing up next to it? Those types of things, because those do affect. I think I understand the problem. Is the neighbor a huge turnoff? I think that's probably what it is, if I'm not mistaken. And then I would also go and verify, like, what this backs up to. Well, it doesn't mean that I'm gonna go cherry picking that 260 comp, but I want to make sure. What is this? Odd. What are we backing up to here? Park. I don't think that's too crazy unless there's some riffraff around there. I don't think that would be a huge part of the value. I think it's just got to be like that street. Again, if you're dealing with an area that needs some TLC, you'll see that, like, nobody wants to move into that junker house next door because maybe there's a problem on it, maybe there's squatters in there. You're not going to get that huge value. Now, I will say this. I don't think you're necessarily going to get that huge value anyways. I think that that's shooting for the moon. And that's just me. When I look at this as is comp right here, you can kind of see why this sold in the condition it's in. Now, if your property already looks like this and is this price, I mean, we already have more bedrooms. You can kind of consider this like an as is value if there's no needs for, remodels and things like that. Are you turning this into a potential rental property? Well, it depends on the condition and what that rent rate is, right? And you can kind of determine the best exit strategy that way. But for me, for a full-on flip, I got to get more evidence. Then, well, this one is 170 and it's got a really horrible neighbor, and this one is 260. I mean, if you're looking to flip this one, we can consider them price per square foot. If you just consider those two properties, do I feel confident at 215? Yeah, I think we have a better street. I think that next door neighbor probably really did a number on that one. But I'm going to want to get more evidence. Slums around the corner. Yeah, that's exactly kind of what I'm thinking, Adam. So this kind of tells you too, like our property can be a lot more than what this sold for. This is clean, move-in ready. We've even got some granite, but this isn't like remodeled to the nines HGTV style like our 170 property or our 260 property. This is also a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom. We got 3-1. We got a little bit more square footage, things like that. Sometimes in these areas, what I'll do is I'll just remove this altogether and see if there's any 700 square foot or even lower properties that are remodeled and selling for really high values. But this is one of those areas where it's like we're coming in, we're fixing them up. People will buy them. They might take longer to be on the market. Just because some people aren't willing to wait till it catches on. That's laminate countertop, not granite, but they did a really good job on this remodel. Not dissimilar to what we're experiencing there. So, I mean, I even like this one. And you guys got to think as much, you got to remember, an appraiser's got to go on something. Understand this. Is there evidence? Would somebody local maybe say, I know this area so well, I know for a fact that I can buy this and I can put 50 grand into it and I can sell it on the market at 240 with my eyes closed? It's entirely possible. But I'm not trying to be that person. I'm not trying to be the person that's trying to sell the highest sold house ever when I comp. If you want to be that person, understand you have every right and ability. You have data that says I would dig into those couple properties that sold in the 200s a lot more, but I'm going to go look for 3 to 6 properties. I'm going to go look as a flipper when I'm done with this project, what's my worst case scenario, my best case scenario? I want supporting evidence. I don't want the one property that somebody hit a grand slam on somehow that I don't know why. Can you consider it? Absolutely. But you don't want just that. You don't want to look at this and say, yep, that property over there on 4 West 50th Street. Well, it's a perfect comp. So this property is worth 260. You also don't want to look at this one at 170 with that neighbor next door and say that's all you can get. You also don't want to look at this one at 160. Is not like, if you look at the one that's 170, this one sold at 160 and it's not as nice. You're looking for data. You're looking to make an informed decision about what you can reasonably expect your number to be after you go in and flip this. Now, if you only want to put 20,000 into it and you want to list it for 160, that might be your most profitable exit strategy rather than trying to make it look like a magazine property. And I think that's what this person did. So you've got to talk about you got to think about, I mean, look at how cute that is on the outside. They didn't have to go crazy. Now, look, I'm just going to say what I'm going to say. And this is my YouTube channel and I get to say whatever I want. Actually, this is RJ's technically. It's his name, but it's ours because we do all the things on this one. Please don't paint wood floors. It breaks my heart. I can't look at that and it makes my heart hurt. Oh, these poor little babies. I mean, they might not have had a choice. But this house is cute as a button, but you guys can see that, they didn't necessarily go put in, the most high-end HGTV. $260,000 is my aim. So understand that when you run your numbers on something and you're comping something, like this is a comp, right? Look at the estimated value on this, 216. That's cute. But those, again, those are numbers that are an algorithm, right? What did this sell for? And where is it at? This sold, y'all, I would be verifying this. This sold for $270,000. Something. Property number 14. We got to get the deets. Where are you at on my map? So now it's because they have a dispensary in their backyard, guys. I'm just kidding. Now we got to figure out why. Is it because we're crossing this freeway now and this other big, maybe this isn't a comp. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of far away. This is what's crazy about these downtown areas where people are now like fixing these properties up and paying high dollars for them. You got to just make sure that your property, that's plausible on. Can you walk to the same things that they can walk to? And this is what I was bringing Yolanda up for earlier. Hi, Wesley Wells. Good to see you. Thank you for having us. Thank you for joining us is what I meant to say. Really, really happy to have everybody here. Make sure you hit those like buttons. I don't really know how many likes I have. But back to what I was saying is what you can walk to from here, you can't really walk to from our property. So this definitely would not be something I would consider in a lot of areas. Okay. If I didn't have this a hop, skip, and a jump away from me. You know what I'm saying? I probably would not select that as a comp. And it might not be a comp, to be honest with you. We're getting into, kind of crossing some major roads. I don't really love all these comps. I'm a little uncomfortable with that 14. So if I didn't have comp number 2, I'd be very uncomfortable with that. But what's interesting to me is way back here when we were still going through this comp, I said I feel real comfortable, I believe, at 215, 220. So that's what's really interesting to me. And I still would probably be a little bit conservative on this one, only because we're dealing with an area that it's still up and coming. You're going to have to consider it might sit on the market for a lot more days. It might not. Those street views are really important on this one. Things like that. You don't want to get into a situation where you're just overshooting. I would definitely not put 260 on this, 270, and I'm definitely going to come and verify it in multiple platforms to see what else is pulling up. So I'll quickly do that on here so I can get to another comp before I've got to let you guys go. Until just next Wednesday, it's not forever. I'm going to keep doing this for you guys. And before I end the episode, I hope that there's a couple in the chats that I still haven't gotten to and that I can get to them offline, because we can't be doing a 3-hour episode every week. But just to verify, we have our square footage. I'm not even going to mess with that minimum. I'm definitely just going to do like a 1,300 max. I'm going to do this and I'm going to get those filtered out right here. And I'm just going to double check these babies because look what I've got right here. 2 condominiums. Dag nabbit. Let me see if... That's one of the things is like I always love having the button option. And I love all 3 of these comp tools. But I always, I'm always nervous that some of them I'm going to accidentally comp myself with like a duplex when it's not, or a condo when it's not like a condo situation. So see how that, again, that's not a comp. So this is a comp we already determined on the other. What do we got here? Townhome. That's why it didn't pop up. Fully renovated. So I don't think 3903 Kane Street was on ours. It's a 2-2. We want to make sure we include enough in rehab to add another bathroom if you're looking at this as a flip. But that makes me pretty happy. I'm assuming I don't, again, think that this came up. Now let's see what it says. Oh, cute as a button. And it's still contingent on here. So I like my data on all of these platforms that I'm getting. Wow, they did a really good job on that. This gives me, this is very, very HGTV worthy. I want to point that out. You don't want to be calling this a $20,000 rehab to make our property look like this comp and say you can sell it for $225,000. They did a beautiful job on this. Regardless of, I'm not understanding countertops in this neighborhood as of this moment. I can't tell if that's quartz or if but it doesn't have to match perfectly. They did a fantastic job. Oh my goodness, you guys. Yeah, this will sell this baby. This is 100% why I didn't go. And understand me on this one, guys. This is why I use multiple tools. Because I didn't see this contingent property sitting over there. Because on PropStream, really fast, I need to show you something before we go and wrap this up today. Check me out. Unless you hit both, I'm going to have so many years of things to teach you guys. I was only looking at sold statuses. And sometimes I'm just letting y'all know. The reason that I don't do this often on PropStream is because you'll look and see it has the double entry. And that drives me bananas. So it's not in my nature to sit there and show you guys that button. Or you can just hit public record or you can just hit MLS. You don't have to go to both. But then, you're taking out the public record properties. So you kind of want to look at all of them if you are utilizing this as your comping tool. And then you'll start to see, there's our little baby. There she is. So again, oops. When you click those little buttons and you want to select and you want to see where are these at, how can the market substantiate my estimated repair? You do have 4 properties, but one is contingent and one is active. And I do like to see those. I like to see what is currently on the market. This is we've already gone through this one, but I'm just showing you again right here. You want to see, can I turn my property into this property? I'm very comfortable at this 220 number. I feel like those are my good comps. Understand, I also think you need to add another bathroom, but these would tell you didn't need to add that other bathroom. I think that this property right here would have sold. So I think us checking that street view is very important. This property right here would have gone in this 220 range if it didn't have that neighbor right there. And maybe that park is full of riffraff at night. We don't know. This is a up and coming area, right? We determined this one was in like a little bit worse off condition. And then I'm just going to go in there very quickly and I'm going to verify that with another tool to see if I'm getting consistent data, especially in different markets that we're in. So again, I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to click that those are the numbers that we're seeing. Because again, when I'm in, and I am looking at active and pending right here, you know, we actually have a different comp here, I believe. 9 West 50th and 2118. So yeah, I would go right in there on batch and try to figure out what this bad boy is all about. Because we might have just gotten an additional property. And that's why in some of these markets, look at this baby. Look at this baby. This just makes me so happy. As it pulls up, bear with me. And my filler little commentaries. We'll go through these photos really fast because it makes me happy. Did this sell for more because it's got like an addition out here? Or is it you think it's those trees? This looks like somebody's tree shed. What happened right there? Why did Jesse's face pop up in my Zillow? It's a cute little space. I feel like this is a whole mother-in-law suite vibe. I don't know why. I can't tell if it was the main house. Maybe it is the main house. Oh, I think I was just waiting for it. Look there. You got some kind of sunroom. Oh, with the washer and dryer back there. Okay, I mean, guys, this gives you sufficient evidence that you're pretty safe, I think, in the 200s. 220 is a safe number on this, a safe bet. Trying to pull up the property details on this, but it wants to be a little bit slow. So we'll just kind of wrap it right there. Those would be my comps for that property. Whomever submitted that for entry. My number on it's 220. You could probably get away with shooting a little higher, but I think it's always better to figure out why those couple properties. I mean, we have 3 now. If we verify those accuracies, so could be higher. It could be higher than 220. But I'm also thinking you probably would have to put in a little bit more on that exterior to get anywhere near those 260s. So see how the numbers shake out both ways with different rehab plans. Because couple of those, like their rehab wasn't so crazy. And on the exterior for me. So I'm thinking, is there a bonus room, a sunroom, something like that pops that square footage up much higher? And those are things that I'm going to try and get the details for out of those MLS details. That being said, I am going to wrap this up for today. If you have not added me on Facebook or social media, again, I am more than happy to comp your properties before we get till next week and you get another chance to. I may use them as a live example if I do that, but you can send that to me in Facebook Messenger If you are not a Crucible Titan, if you're a Crucible Titan, you know what to do. And I really appreciate all of you guys following along. If you're watching and you're not on the live, make sure if you can, you join me on the live, because then I can at least get to some of your properties in live time so you can see that screen share version of it, which is extra valuable in my opinion. And yes, please just come back and join me every Wednesday. And I'm open to hearing ways that I can kind of serve you guys better. And I appreciate you following me, and we'll see you next week. Or we'll see you for a minute while I figure out how to stop this live. Have a good week, guys.